North Korea. Yeah.
What about them? The United States has right now close to 10,000 nuclear weapons. Iran has no nuclear weapons, and North Korea at best might have 8.
But they are trying to do, but they are not among the 5.
Pardon me?
They are not among the 5.
Right, well, as I said, all nuclear weapon states, the same analysis applies. But right now, Iran doesn't have a nuke, and North Korea might have 8 at best.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But I'm not justifying their threat or use of nuclear weapons at all, no. We should be getting rid of all these things. The United States and Russia are the 2 worst violators here, followed by Israel, and then Britain and France in that order, and then probably Pakistan. But we know this is a case of before you observe the speck in your brother's eye, pull the mote out of your own eye with respect to the United States and Russia. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty clearly required, as far back as 1968, all the main 5 nuclear weapon states, United States, Russia, Britain, France, China, to negotiate on the elimination of nuclear weapons. And they never have. The only exception to that was the proposal made by then President Gorbachev at Reykjavik to President Reagan to eliminate nuclear weapons. Reagan did think about it and rejected the proposal because he wanted to deploy his phantasmagorical Star Wars system. So that's the only time these nuclear weapon states have ever fulfilled their obligation under Article 6 of the NPT. And that wasn't even an obligation, a negotiation. It's the only time that proposal was ever made. So as long as these states continue to maintain these massive nuclear weapon systems, of course you're going to see proliferation. We used Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We blew up these 2 cities, exterminated 250,000 people for no reason at all, just its demonstrative effect to the world. So the Soviets got their bomb, then the Chinese got their bomb in reaction to the Soviets. The British worked with us on getting their bomb. The French got their bomb. The Israelis got their bomb courtesy of the French. And then the Pakistanis got their bomb, and the North Koreans got theirs from the Pakistanis. So that's the way it's been working. The entire instability comes from the first use of nuclear weapons in the first place, which, as I said, if you go back and review the record, which I do in my book, we had the War Department Field Manual 2710 of 1940 that clearly provided that the terror bombings of cities was a war crime. So I'm not holding us here to any standard we had already not imposed on ourselves. Likewise, when we signed the Nuremberg Charter on August 8, 1945, 2 days after bombing Hiroshima, 1 day before bombing Nagasaki, the Nuremberg Charter, which we imposed on the Nazis, said the wanton devastation of a city, town, or district is a war crime. And that was in the Nuremberg Charter. Interestingly enough, in the Tokyo War Crimes Charter, which General MacArthur drew up to prosecute the Japanese war criminals, he eliminated it was almost verbatim like the Nuremberg Charter, except he eliminated the language saying that the wanton devastation of a city, town, or district was a war crime. I would call that, as a lawyer, consciousness of guilt. Indeed, in the Tokyo, and I have the passage in this book, in the Tokyo war crimes judgment, Judge Powell from India, that we put on there, said in his dissent that nothing that the defendants did here, he's referring to the Japanese war criminals, could rival the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which were on a par of Nazi acts committed in Europe. Now that was our judge, and that's what he said. So this problem goes all the way back, right from the beginning. The use of nuclear weapons were criminal, and everything that has come forward since then is. And we're certainly not going to be able to contain this, Iran, North Korea, Israel, Pakistan, with the United States, Soviet Union, or sorry, Russia, France, Britain, China, not getting rid of any major significant nuclear weapon systems. And it's the height of hypocrisy, you know, for Obama, yesterday Obama and Brown and Sarkozy to get up there and point this finger at Iran, when even our own intelligence agencies admit they do not have a nuclear bomb. They don't. And they're still several years away from having one. And certainly that's the way the rest of the world sees it. You know, we can get on our high horse here about this, but you know, we've got maybe 10,000 nukes, 8 to 10,000, depends on how you want to count it. And the Russians have probably even more. We might have 6 and the Russians have 8. Yeah, Joe.
Very interesting and provocative presentation, but I have a couple of comments and observations. If I understood you correctly, the 5 major powers who have nuclear weapons are war criminals, according to the sites that you had given.
Yeah.
Now, if we wanted to decriminalize ourselves right now, we would all have to do it in unison, because there'd be a tremendous imbalance of power. If one of these countries said, listen, we've been violating these laws, we're criminals, we are now going to destroy all of our nuclear weapons within X number of years, whatever it happens to be. I'm putting myself as an American in that situation. I wouldn't want to take the first step in saying that, because exposing us to 4 other powers and possibly other emerging countries that are going to have this, I don't want to live under somebody else's law and somebody's dictates. That to me is unthinkable. Comments?
Well, actually, Henry Kissinger himself, Mr. Machiavelli, has recently called for the total abolition of nuclear weapons in a joint statement with George Shultz, who was Reagan's Secretary of State, and William Perry, who was Secretary of Defense. And they've made repeated calls for the total abolition of nuclear weapons. And their calculation is we're a lot safer without it. We have massive conventional forces that can defend ourselves. And the real threat to the United States of America are nuclear weapons. So they've made repeated calls, they've had meetings over in Moscow. So you have some very hard-headed, realistic statesmen calling for the abolition of nuclear weapons. And this just quite recently. On the grounds, not unilateral disarmament. No one is calling for unilateral disarmament. Indeed, back in the 1960s, there was a program that would lead to negotiated nuclear disarmament, the so-called McCloy-Zorin Accord between the United States and the Soviet Union, 62 or 3 or something like that. Again, the citations are in my book, where both governments set up an agenda to accomplish this. So, but the Kissinger-Shultz-Perry rationale is that the main security threat to the United States of America today are nuclear weapons in anyone's hands, and we should just abolish them.